The forest stood oppressive, shrouded in perpetual twilight. Ancient trees clawed at the sky, their branches gnarled and twisted. Mist clung to the forest floor, thick and cloying, muffling all sound but the rustle of unseen things. It was a place of shadows and secrets, where the sunlight dared not penetrate. The air hung heavy with the scent of decay and the unspoken weight of sorrow. This was a place where hope came to die, swallowed whole by the encroaching darkness. The forest held its breath, waiting, watching for the unwary souls who dared to trespass. Elias, haunted by the memory of his brother's death, stumbled through the undergrowth. Each step felt like a journey through his own personal hell, the dense forest mirroring the chaos in his mind. Guilt gnawed at him, a constant companion. It was a relentless force, whispering accusations and regrets, never allowing him a moment's peace. He clutched a tattered photograph, the edges softened by countless tears. The image of his brother, forever young and innocent, was a stark contrast to the man Elias had become. He didn't know why he was drawn to this godforsaken place, only that some unseen force compelled him forward. The forest seemed alive, whispering secrets and beckoning him deeper into its embrace. Behind him followed Iris, her face pale and drawn. Her eyes, once bright with hope, now reflected only sorrow and loss. The echo of her daughter's laughter, now forever silenced, rang in her ears. It was a haunting melody, a cruel reminder of the joy that had been stolen from her. She held a small, worn teddy bear close, seeking solace in its faded fur. The bear was a tangible connection to her lost child, a fragile thread to a past filled with love and warmth. She longed for oblivion, for the pain to end. Each day was a battle against the crushing weight of her grief, a struggle to find a reason to continue. Last came Thomas, his eyes vacant, his movements mechanical. He was a shell of the man he once was, hollowed out by the burden of his past. The weight of his betrayal, of the lies that had shattered his family, pressed down on him. It was a suffocating presence, a constant reminder of the irreversible damage he had caused. He carried a worn leather journal, its pages filled with apologies he knew would never be read. Each word was a plea for forgiveness, a desperate attempt to make amends for the unforgivable. He sought only escape, a way to outrun the consequences of his actions. The forest offered a twisted sanctuary, a place where he could lose himself and perhaps find a semblance of peace. They stumbled upon it at the forest's heart, a clearing bathed in an unnatural, ethereal glow. In the center stood a weeping willow, its branches cascading down like a mournful shroud. Its leaves shimmered, an otherworldly silver in the dim light. An unnatural silence hung in the air, broken only by the soft sigh of the wind through the willow's leaves. Drawn by an unseen force, they stepped closer, their feet moving as if in a dream. The air grew colder, the scent of decay stronger, tinged with something sickly sweet. Each felt a pull toward the tree, a yearning deep within their souls. Elias saw it first, a glimmer of light amidst the willow's weeping branches. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. He reached out, his fingers brushing against something cold and smooth. As he touched it, a jolt of energy surged through him, and images flashed before his eyes, his brother laughing, alive. Iris, drawn by Elias's gasp, saw her daughter dancing in the dappled light beneath the tree. Her laughter, so real, so close, reached out to her. Hope, long dormant, flickered within her. She reached for the teddy bear clutched in her hand, her fingers tightening around its worn fur. Thomas, lost in his grief, saw only fleeting images of his family, their faces contorted in anger and betrayal. He recoiled from the sight, his hand instinctively reaching for the journal tucked inside his coat. But even in his pain, a flicker of curiosity sparked within him. The willow's branches stirred slowly at first, then with increasing urgency they snaked out, long and slender like fingers reaching for their prey. One by one, the branches coiled around their bodies, gentle yet insistent, holding them fast. Fear, sharp and cold, jolted them back to reality. They struggled against their bonds, but the branches held them firm. The scent of decay intensified, choking them, and the air grew heavy, difficult to breathe. Panic surged through them, but it was too late. The willow had them now, its grip tightening with every beat of their terrified hearts. It drew them closer, inexorably, towards its trunk, towards the pulsing light that beckoned from within its depths. The willow's voice whispered inside their minds, a symphony of sorrow and despair. It was as if the tree itself was alive, breathing out their deepest fears and regrets, wrapping them in a cocoon of melancholy. It spoke of their pain, their guilt, their deepest regrets, echoing their own thoughts back to them with chilling clarity. Each whisper was a dagger piercing through the facade they had built around their hearts. It understood their pain, shared their burden. The willow was not just a tree, it was a silent witness to their suffering, a companion in their darkest hours. Elias saw his brother, his hand outstretched, begging him to save him. The vision was so vivid, so real, that he could almost feel the cold touch of his brother's fingers. The guilt that had haunted him for years intensified, a crushing weight. It was as if the willow had unearthed the buried memories, forcing him to confront the past he had tried so hard to forget. He closed his eyes, a tear rolling down his cheek. The sorrow was overwhelming, a tidal wave of emotions that left him gasping for breath. Iris heard her daughter's voice, small and scared, calling out for her mummy. The sound was faint, like a distant echo, but it pierced through her heart with the force of 1,000 knives. The longing, the unbearable ache of her absence threatened to consume her. Every whisper from the willow was a reminder of the void that could never be filled. She clutched the teddy bear tighter, as if trying to hold on to a fading memory. The soft fabric was a poor substitute for the warmth of her daughter's embrace. Thomas felt the weight of his lies, the devastation he had wrought upon his family. The whispers of the willow were relentless, each one a reminder of his betrayal. He saw the tears on his children's faces, heard the heartbreak in his wife's voice. The pain he had caused was etched into their features, a permanent scar that time could never heal. The journal in his pocket felt heavy, a testament to his failure. Each page was a chronicle of his mistakes, a record of the sorrow he had inflicted upon those he loved. The willow drank in their sorrow, their tears, their guilt. It fed on their despair, growing stronger with each passing moment. Its leaves shimmered brighter, its branches pulsed with stolen energy. It was a parasite, leeching away their life force, leaving them hollow and empty. Elias felt his strength draining away, his resolve crumbling. He had nothing left to give, yet the willow demanded more. His vision blurred, and the image of his brother's face faded into darkness. Iris clung to the memory of her daughter's laughter, but it was growing faint, distant. She closed her eyes, surrendering to the overwhelming tide of grief. She no longer had the strength to fight. Thomas, his face streaked with tears, clutched the journal to his chest. He had failed everyone he loved, and now he would pay the ultimate price. Despair washed over him, cold and absolute. A blood-curdling scream pierced the air, snapping Elias out of his stupor. He looked up to see Iris, her face contorted in terror, her hand reaching out towards him. But it wasn't him she was reaching for. It was the teddy bear, which had fallen from her grasp and lay just out of reach. With a surge of adrenaline, Elias thrashed against his bonds, the memory of his brother's laughter fueling his desperation. He had to save her, had to atone for his past. He wouldn't let another loved one slip away. He strained against the willow's grasp, his muscles screaming in protest. With a final desperate lunge, he managed to break free, the branch snapping back with a sound like a cracking whip. He stumbled back, gasping for air, his body aching but free. He turned back to Iris, his heart pounding with hope. The air around them seemed to thicken, charged with an unspoken tension. Every fiber of his being yearned for a sign, a glimmer of the woman he once knew. He reached for her hand, his fingers brushing against hers. The touch was electric, a fleeting connection that sent shivers down his spine. It was as if the universe held its breath, waiting for what would come next. But as he made contact, a jolt of energy surged through him, throwing him back against the cold, hard ground. The force was unlike anything he had ever felt, a violent reminder of the power that now coursed through her. He looked up, his breath catching in his throat. The world around him seemed to blur, his vision narrowing to the figure standing before him. His mind raced, trying to comprehend the transformation he was witnessing. Iris stood before him, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Her lips curled into a cruel smile. It was a smile that spoke of power, of control, and of a darkness that had taken root deep within her soul. In her hand, she clutched the teddy bear, its once faded fur now a vibrant, impossible shade of pink. The toy seemed out of place, a relic of innocence in the hands of someone who had become anything but. The willow's laughter echoed through the clearing, a chilling, triumphant sound. It was as if the very trees were mocking him, reveling in the despair that now filled the air. It had taken her sorrow, her despair, and twisted it into something monstrous. The energy that surrounded her was palpable, a dark force that seemed to pulse with malevolent intent. She was no longer the woman he thought he knew. The transformation was complete, and the person standing before him was a stranger, a vessel of darkness. She was a vessel filled with the willow's dark power. The aura that enveloped her was suffocating, a tangible reminder of the force that now controlled her every move. And as Elias stared into her eyes, he saw the horrifying truth reflected back at him. He was no longer in danger. He was already lost. The realization hit him like a tidal wave, drowning him in a sea of despair. There was no going back, no saving her. The woman he loved was gone, replaced by a creature of darkness.